He is an alumni of the Groundlings Theater main company, and he has a very normal-sized set of hands. No exaggeration, he starred at least once in every single television series that has ever aired, including the best series in the history of TV, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which he portrays Charlie's morally questionable Uncle Jack in. As the great Johnny Cochran put it, if the glove doesn't fit, give up. Uncle Jack, Seymour Whitaker, Andrew Friedman, thank you very much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This is an honor. Thank you. We're going to start with kind of the craft and the career of acting, going through a stroll of the highlights of your very long list of in your portfolio, just the things that were of particular interest to us. But before we get into the specific projects, how did you find acting?
Well, I actually, in high school, I was a soccer player and all I wanted to do was be a veterinarian. So I applied only to colleges that had vet schools attached to them. I ended up going to the University of Maryland because Maryland and Virginia Tech had a joint vet school. So that was my focus. I was doing chemistry and Chem 2 and biology and physics and all that stuff. And then my freshman year, I saw this improv troupe on campus and was like, what the hell are they doing? That's amazing.
Yeah.
But I didn't do anything about it till my second semester, sophomore year. I was done. I wanted to take an acting class. My mom always was trying to push me into acting. I never wanted to do it. And then I took an acting class my second semester. And then I got into that improv troupe the following year. And that was it. Yeah. So I was an acting major.
So it was that it was kind of like the energy of improv that really captivated you and what made you want to get into that course, that career course.
Yeah, totally.
Do you
find just what's up?
Do you find yourself like, because it seems like such a different energy than a script and scene by scene and things like that. Do you wish you could only do the improv style, or even like the Curb Your Enthusiasm types of projects where you get to use the improv even though you're not on a stage? Do you like prefer those projects now over the traditional, memorize a
scripted material?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I did plays forever. I've done tons of live scripted material. In Chicago, after graduation, I moved to Chicago with my now my wife. It was my girlfriend. And then even when I came to LA, I was doing improv in Chicago. And when I came to LA, I was also doing plays and improv. So I think I've always liked the mixture of it. I love like improvising off of scripted material.
Yeah.
But I also like doing improv shows as well. I mean, it's not like if the material is well written, it's a joy to like discover that character and do the research and figure out who this person is. So there's elements of both sides that I really love. I love the meshing. Like Curb is straight up improv, except you're improvising around a story structure, right? So they're giving you sort of beats to hit. Like they want you to make sure you hit this information. We got to get this in there because it's going to inform the story in the next scene, blah, blah, blah. But however you do it is cool with us. But
it's like a Mad Lib.
Yeah, it's totally like a Mad Lib. Like when you get the script for the episode, it's just beats. Mm-hmm. It's just little small paragraphs of what they want to happen in that scene. There's no dialogue. So you just kind of show up and know like, oh, this scene we're going to talk about X.
Yeah. That's got to be a cool challenge too. Instead of just kind of free falling, you have these marks to hit, and it must create like an interesting puzzle as far as like putting that together in your brain. And the limitations that presents also is like, I don't know, it seems like you get with screenwriting, I like I really enjoy writing, but sometimes the hardest part is figuring out like where I'm gonna land. And it's
Right.
nice like when you get those projects where you're like, no, this is what you have to write, like a 48-hour film festival project where they say, use this prop, use this character. You're like, okay, I've got some kind of reference here to start with. And that's almost sometimes the hardest part.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's a job for those execs, for those producers, and you know and Larry on Curb. Like that's a job. That's them figuring out that puzzle
Hmm.
of story, while they know, oh, that character said whatever in that last scene. We know we have that covered. We've got to make sure. But then new stuff comes up.
Yeah.
It's I think it's pretty, super cool.
Yeah, yeah,
It-
it's
yeah.
definitely, you can feel the energy when you watch it. All right,
Right.
I'm doing a terrible job at keeping us moving along because we're one question in. I'm gonna move right along to question
Yeah. Go
two.
ahead.
According to IMDb, your first film credit is a short film called Lionel on a Sunday. This was written
Yeah.
and directed by Zach Braff, and this was also his first time directing. How did that come about, and what was the experience like? You know, being your first like film project and working with a first time director who turned out to be Zach Braff.
Yeah. Zach was at Northwestern, and I was 24, 23, living in Chicago, trying to get acting jobs.
Hmm.
And my agent at that time was like, Northwestern's doing like a student film. Do you want to go audition for it? And I was like, of course. And so Zach had won a grant from the university to write and direct a short. And so he had written film, and then I guess won a whatever the contest is at Northwestern as a senior. Um, and so then they paid for production. They had all the equipment. Uh, yeah, it was great. I mean, the character doesn't. It's kind of mostly silent. My character he's the lead, but he was mostly this sort of reclusive, um, nonverbal young man that lived underground. It's in the future.
Oh, okay.
Everybody lives underground. The sun is too hot. People can't, but you go out one day a year. It's for your Sunday.
Nice.
So
Okay.
it's called Lion. My character was Lionel on a Sunday. So it's his journey. He lives on like the 95th floor of this subterranean apartment complex. And it was his journey up the floors to get to the surface of Earth and all the people that he meets along the way.
That sounds
Um,
awesome.
yeah, he did an amazing job. I mean, Zach was super talented as an actor and as a director.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I mean, I'd imagine like it couldn't have been like a huge budget to it seems such a like um ambitiously conceptual for what couldn't have been a huge budget. I'd be very interested to see like how he pulled those things off or how he depicted that world. That's really neat.
Yeah.
Really cool
Yeah. It was
concept.
really cool. And they rented this old, um, vacant theater, like in Chicago from like the 20s. They used to do like vaudeville shows in there. So it was like 2,000 seat theater.
Hmm.
And we shot in the behind the theater. There was all these different stairwells to get to, and it was
Yeah.
completely dilapidated and run down. It was perfect for this world.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. And then you go on to work with Zach Braff again for another first. You played an EMT in the eighth episode of season 4, My Last
Yeah.
Chance. This one also had Molly Shannon and like that heartbreaking plane, trains, and automobiles ending and twist with her. But this was also, of course, Zach Braff's first time directing an episode in that series. My wife and I are huge fans of that show. It just has such a really cool energy about it. And I always heard like they got to shoot like a majority of the series was shot like they had an actual abandoned hospital that was away from the studios, so a lot of the stuff
Yeah.
they got to do out from under the studio head's eyes. They just kind of had their own little world there. What was it like working on that, and also like you're working with Zach Braff again?
Yeah. Zach called me just out of the blue and offered me that job. It was very gracious of him. And I think it was my third job in LA. Um, and it was a very small role, it was like 2 lines or whatever, but it was super cool to see him. And he had already, he'd gotten, I mean, his career had skyrocketed from Scrubs. It's like he went from this guy that we were doing this little thing in Chicago, and then suddenly he's like the lead of Scrubs.
Yeah.
But he was cool. It was a fun experience. I remember getting yelled at by who was the older doctor?
He was Kelso.
Yeah, what's that guy's name? He's famous actor.
Ken. I want to say Ken. No, I think that's his. Ken.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but he was in that scene with me, and I exited. I come in, I do something, and then I exit camera right, but then I turned around to watch the rest of the scene, and he came over to me after the first take, and he was like, "Hey, man, don't make eye contact with me.
Wow.
Don't turn around and don't look back at the scene." I was like, wow. I was like, okay, man. So I basically had to like face away from the action. It was so strange.
That's amazing. Well, yeah, I guess he's not too far off from his character. I always thought that he could have played, like, if they did a Nightmare on Elm Street in the future where Freddy Krueger was a senior citizen, Bob Kelso would have nailed that.
Yeah, right.
He gave me Freddy Krueger vibes, senior citizen Freddy Krueger.
Wasn't he in like Full Metal Jacket? Like, he's been around forever. He's like amazing.
Yeah, he's great in that. But yeah, that's just that's so funny. Like, do you run into that often with because I mean, you always hear from the outside the stereotypical, prima donna or whatever, where don't look at me, or only these M&Ms and things like that. Like, do you often run into that on when you're going into all these different sets? No, not really. I mean, okay.
That was kind of an intense situation. Usually, like when you go on a show as a guest star, as a recurring, everybody's usually pretty cool to you, because it's like they're there all the time. They have this rapport. They're comfortable, and people understand when
dog to play with.
Right, and people want to make you feel. What's that?
You're new and shiny.
Right. And they want to make you feel comfortable and do your best work and stuff. So usually, I haven't encountered a ton of that. I mean, there's personalities, but
yeah. That's cool. When I was going through your IMDb, I had like halfway through, it was like the 7th time I saw Eliza Coupe, which I hope I'm saying her name right, because I've always said Eliza Coupe, and is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So first it was Scrubs, which you guys weren't in Scrubs together, but she go on to star in Scrubs, and then your paths have crossed so many times since then. I have some notes here. She was in Happy Endings, which you'd pop up in an episode called No Ho Ho in 2012, and then in 2014 your paths crossed again in an episode of Bench called Curry Favor. In 2015 in the film It's Us. 2019 in the Future Man episode Homicide Life in the Mons, and again in 2019 you starred in 4 episodes of Veronica Mars as Mayor Dobbins, and one of those episodes also starred Eliza Coupe. Is there a story there, or is just this like happenstance? Am I a conspiracy theorist?
You're a conspiracy theorist. Totally.
I have a case though, right? If I wanted to start a Reddit thread or something, I could maybe spin something out of that.
Yeah. Make up a whole thing about our connection. Yeah, no, it's totally happenstance. It's really funny because we get along really well, and whenever I get onto a set and she's there, I'm like, what are you doing here? You're always here. Yeah. And It's Us was really fun because we shot that in Vermont. And she was the lead in that, but I was only there for like 3 days or something. But it was really cool because we were like, it was a small cast, and I got to know her a little better. And yeah, it was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's been like 2000. It's been like almost over a decade of you guys just running into each other here. And
right.
Yeah, it's gotta get pretty funny after a while. Like, all right. Like,
yeah, and Bench, she was. Go ahead.
Does your agent have something in your contract that you don't know about where you'll only get hired if Eliza Coupe also gets hired, or
Man,
vice
I
versa?
wish that was
There's
true.
the theory.
I wish that was true. I would get so much more work.
I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was going to say Benched. My friends, two of my friends created that show, and she was, one of the leads on the show, and so I got pulled onto that show because I knew the creators. Yeah, that was the only reason why we hooked up again. Yeah,
That's cool.
she's funny. She's a really funny actress.
Yeah, she's intense. The Scrubs was the first time that I had ever seen her, and she was like super intense on that. Just like the more alpha than any alpha male that I had ever met. She was just killing it. And then she's always kind of played a variation of like that really kind of quirky, she might kiss you, she might punch you. You don't know.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's unlike she's very different than most actresses that you see on like television that usually get the spotlight. It's cool. Um well, rest in peace, of course, to the amazing director and writer Nora Ephron. She's responsible for Sleepless in Seattle, Michael, You've Got Mail, When Harry Met Sally, Mixed Nuts, My Blue Heaven, and the film you had the opportunity to work on, 2005's Bewitched. What was that like to work with her? And I mean, did you work with Will Ferrell at all on that one?
No, that was a really small little thing. It was cool. The best part of that job was, well, two things. First of all, I don't even think you see me in the film.
Yeah, I think it was a
Uh,
deleted scene.
yeah. I think maybe you hear. Well, Annie Mumolo and I played a couple shopping at a Bed Bath and Beyond in that movie. I think maybe you see her, you hear me, or you hear both of us. I don't know. But Annie, I don't know if you know Annie Mumolo. She co-wrote Bridesmaids. She was a groundling
Oh, okay,
along with
cool.
me.
Yeah.
So that was fun to like hang out with a friend. But as far as, I mean, the other cool part of the job was that I got to audition for Nora Ephron, which was, I got to be in a room with her and audition for that part, even though it was so small.
Yeah.
But there's no real other story. It was a quick, like 1 day job of us just shopping. Yeah,
That's fair.
that was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish, I could have more interaction or more direction, but the role didn't need it.
That's all right. Just
Yeah.
make something up in the future. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. We went out for tea for months after that. Every Thursday we had tea together and talked about her films and how I thought that they could have been improved upon.
Yeah. While we were shooting the scene at Bed Bath & Beyond, there was actually a hostage situation.
Yeah,
and
right.
Insanity.
Yeah, there was a fire. I saved it.
The cool thing is that like you worked with Nora Ephron. That in itself is enough. Like period.
Yeah.
And it's a sentence. Although that's actually another person, and I'm sure that your role was uncredited in this film, but working with Ivan Reitman on 2006's My Super Ex-Girlfriend. Uh, what was that like working with Ivan Reitman?
That scene in My Super Ex-Girlfriend, at the end, I'm at the very end of the scene. It's like the tag of the movie.
Mhm.
I think what happened was the story about that scene was that I think the studio didn't like the ending of the movie and they wrote that quick little extra scene. And I auditioned for him, which was a blast. And yeah, it was again like a 1 day job. He was super cool. I mean, it was like intimidating to be with Ivan, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like
imagine.
all his movies are my favorite films growing up. And yeah.
It's like, that even as great as he is, that he's spent a majority of his career watching Bill Murray. So it's like, all right, he's
Yeah,
watching
right.
Bill Murray, and I was like, this must be. I can't imagine what could be funny to him after spending so much time with Bill Murray, or what could be impressive. In any
Yeah,
way.
totally.
That's at best you could be acceptable, and that's great.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that scene, right, totally. Like, I mean, he's worked with the best. He worked with the best. I mean, that scene, I think we only did maybe 3 takes because somebody comes through the wall at the end of that, and I think they only had like 2 faux walls, so we only could do it 3. We only had 3 takes. Ironically, I'm friends with his daughter, Catherine Reitman. She, she and I were friends through the Groundlings, and then we were both on Sunny together.
What was she on Sunny?
She plays Dennis's ex-wife. She's the cat.
Oh wow! Oh wow! That's
Catherine Reitman.
I fancy myself a trivia-holic, especially when it comes to things I love, and I either saw that and didn't put 2 and 2 together, or I either way, I am just learning that now, and that's wild. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
And my wife worked with Jason Reitman on Casual. He had that show Casual. My wife was a writer on that show.
Yeah.
So we have a weird Reitman.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
In 2005, you starred in an indie mockumentary called Closing Escrow alongside Reno 911's Cedric Yarbrough and fellow Groundlings member Wendy McClendon-Covey. You play a husband in one of 3 families who end up in a quirky bidding war when they get their hearts set on the same property. It premiered on HBO US at the US HBO Comedy Arts Festival in 2007 and got a limited release later that year through Magnolia Pictures. Right now, it's available on Amazon Prime if anybody wants to check it out. There's no shortage of positive reception for this film for people that have seen it. Can you talk about the differences when you're going from, like, because you just came from Ivan Reitman and Nora Ephron, which I'm assuming are very large studio productions, and then this is an independent film with I didn't see what the actual budget was, but I'm assuming it was under $1 million.
Yeah.
How you can tell an effective story, like kind of going back to even Zach Braff with the first short you were in, telling an effective story on a short budget.
So you're asking
just like what that was like, especially like going from a huge studio production, and like what kind of compromises do you personally have to make as an actor on set, and how do you are you prepared for those things?
That's an interesting question. I mean,
I do independent films, and I'm sure that Closing Escrow was a larger budget than any film that I've worked on, but I do know that there's the levels to at the end of the day, you're telling a story with a camera, lights, and actors, but I mean there's a treatment that comes with the studio, and there's also probably a lot more time waiting and things like that. Things are probably quicker. I'm just curious because you've been on both sides, and especially in that situation, one after the other, that direct contrast, what that's like.
I guess. Well, look, I mean, there's a lot of compromises. That you're right. When you work on a smaller budget project like craft services to costuming to set design, all these things. You can see the difference, either you're getting a bagel for lunch or you're getting a sushi bar. Yeah. So, that's trivial, but as far as production, sometimes you get less takes, because they only have so many days that they're budgeted for. So they got to get through it. So you don't get to sort of explore a scene as much or figure out a character as deeply. But that being said, sometimes on these big productions, they want to get it done as well, because the more time they spend, the more money they're blowing through.
Yeah.
What
would you say the advantage is to the independent side? Like what advantage? I think the disadvantages are going to be pretty obvious, but what freedoms are you afforded on an independent project that you might not have on a larger budget studio film?
I mean, I feel like as an actor, for me personally, I sometimes feel a greater freedom as far as my stress level. I don't feel as stressed because it's kind of like, this scene isn't costing $2 million. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And you got to get this tracking shot in like 2 takes, or we can't do it again. Uh,
That's yeah, that's
yeah,
that's
so
something that
that
I'd never because I that the movies cost a lot of money, but you never think about like on the macro level, of, like every single scene, every minute, every frame, uh, all the crew, all the actors, the film, like
right,
everything costs in so much. And we were talking to Dominic Burgess actually,
yeah,
and he was the one that made me really think about it differently because he had this crazy story about how he had he did something on the set, something went wrong with his green card or something, and it cost it 1 day of shooting, and it resulted in like 10, 15 voicemails from studio execs, assistants, agents, like screaming about how much money, how many thousands or millions of dollars that this one little mistake that he didn't even really make is costing them, and so furious. And yeah,
wow,
that I never thought about that from the actor's side, like the pressure that you must feel knowing that every time that camera click, the goes around another time, it's costing that much more money, and
yeah.
paying the crew and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And like on independent films, you usually are choosing to do them. I mean, either you're doing it either because you want to work, or there's somebody involved that you want to work with, or the script is really great, or you're passionate about it, or there's a cool director that you click with. On these bigger projects, you kind of, I mean, it could be the same thing, but also
Yeah.
you're usually saying, yeah, well, for me, I'm usually saying yes because I need to make a living and, pay my
Mhm.
bills and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, there was a shot I did a movie called Max Payne with Mark Wahlberg.
Mhm.
And there was a shot where we had to walk through a crowd together having a conversation. And there were like, 100 people, and people come up to me and they say something to me, and then they walk away, and there's all these lights, and it was like a crazy party. And then we had to hit a spot, and then hit a mark, and then continue the conversation. It was like, I don't know, it was I think it was more stressful because of the way they were shooting it, and like
Mhm.
I had a lot of dialogue, and you just had to do it.
Yeah,
You had to
I
do
could
it. You
I
can't.
can completely understand. And I mean, just like the human side of it, just all these people that have to reset back to one every time I miss
Right,
my
and you feel
mark or
guilty.
miss my line. And yeah, I totally get that because I mean, I just did a short film, and I don't like acting, but every once in a while somebody will ask me to jump in front of the camera to do like a short for their reel or something. And
Yeah.
uh so this was not, the stakes were very low on this, but I'm standing there, there's maybe 6 people that are trying to get home, that are working for Honey Buns and Domino's, and I kept messing up the line. And the more I thought about the fact that these people are just, I feel like they're all hating me. They're huffing and puffing. Their wives are going to be mad at them. Their husbands are going to
Yeah.
be mad. They're
Yeah.
missing time with their kids. And here I am on take 4, and I still can't get this damn line out. And it's like sinking into a hole. You want to be mindful of everybody, but if you are too mindful, it like
Right.
puts you in a funk and you can't get it right. Yeah, I could not imagine that many extras just like all relying on me to do this right so they can go home and have dinner. That's,
Well, I mean, although the flip side is that sometimes you're like, oh man, we only did 2 takes. I wanted to do like more. I don't think I got it, you
yeah,
know? And also
yeah,
some of those people are like, oh, I wish he would have, I'll get overtime if he keeps screwing up, you know?
yeah. That's true. That's true.
I mean, that's the other side of it. But yeah.
That's my complex too. I walk around with a guilty conscience. Always just I'm apologizing. But like, why? I don't know. Just sorry. um, in 2007, Casper had the choice to live free or die hard, and he died hard. Your character in Live Free or Die Hard works for Gabriel, who's played by Timothy Olyphant. If I love one thing as much as Always Sunny, it would be Timothy Olyphant. What was he like to work with?
He was cool. Oh, he's so like chill and on it and smart. He's such a great actor. He's very subtle and yeah, it was fun to work with him. You know, he was giving, he had suggestions,
So
you know,
he didn't make you not look at him.
no, he didn't make me not look at them. But I'll tell you this story. My very first day of shooting that film, if you've seen the movie, he's standing. It's like there's a helicopter is landing with Maggie Q, and I come up, and he's standing there, and I come up to him and I say, like, the line is something like, "Oh, all the data's uploaded," you know, and he says, "Okay," and then the helicopter takes off. And before we shot, it was my very first day. I didn't know anybody. The first AD said, "Okay, we have to have a safety meeting. All these people, you know, we're having a helicopter. It's only, 50 yards away. It's going to be very loud. It's going to be very windy. So everybody just be careful. Stuff might fly off all these desks. So let's get that stuff, secured. Just be careful." And so the first take I did with him, I walk up to him, I say the line, he says, "Okay." And then the helicopter starts to take off. And it was so powerful that I started getting like pushed back. And they were like, talk about budget. They were like, "Okay, cut.
Yeah.
What's going on?" I was like, it was just so strong. I didn't realize it was going to be that much wind. I'm like, "Okay, let's do it again." So the helicopter has to take off, fly around, take two. I say my line. It takes off, and I literally cannot keep myself from being pushed back. And Timothy Olyphant is looking at me like, I'm like 5'6", I'm 140 pounds, whatever. And he's like, "What is going on with this idiot?" We had to do it 4 times. That helicopter kept having to take off, land, Maggie Q, take off, land. And on the last take, he was like, "Do you want me to just hold you? Like, do you want me to hold your back?" And I was like, "Please." So if you watch a movie, I'm like this. I'm kind of like pushing my body forward, and he's kind of holding me.
Upsies. That's
terrible.
Awesome. Well, that's cool to hear. That's like, it's always nice to hear that the actors that you really appreciate are just as cool human beings as well. And that's an amazing story. I don't think I'll ever be able to watch that scene ever again without laughing now, just thinking about.
I also hit my head when I got killed in that film. I had to work with a stunt coordinator, and I'm terrible at getting shot. Like, when do I do comedies? When am I getting shot? And in the first take of that, I hit my head on a catwalk and immediately had to go to the infirmary at Universal Studios and like held up production. That another
wow,
talk about feeling guilty and embarrassed. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the lawyer with the hand complex. And of course, I'm talking about Gil in the 7th episode of Booklyn Nine-Nine. However, this does actually involve Always Sunny, because your first episode as Uncle Jack sees Charlie and the McCoyles go into a police station. And that set was supposedly, according to IMDb, which lets me down about 30% of the time, was reused in the early episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Are you able to confirm that?
No, I have no idea. Probably. I would say yes.
Okay. What was that like working on Brooklyn Nine-Nine? And were those callbacks? Was that intentional that you like kept your hands in your pockets?
My God, I didn't even. I did 2 episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I think only one aired.
Oh, okay.
I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did. That happened on Future Man too. I did 2 episodes of Future Man and only one, which happens.
I just remember seeing it was like, okay, wow, he's playing a lawyer again. That's funny. And then he's not taking his hands out of his pockets.
That's funny.
Is this a callback?
I don't know. Maybe I did it subconsciously.
This guy, like a young Charlie, you just seem to have Uncle Jack stuck inside of you. All right, let's play some more word association. Guardians
Okay.
of the Book in 2001, Dinner Date in 2002, Married in 2003, Men in Trees in 2008, Ugly Betty in 2009, The Big C in 2011. What do all these things have in common?
Yeah, my wife.
All right, yeah. So your wife is a screenwriter, Cara DiPaolo. Um, all those, of course, for projects that she wrote, you worked on, except for the
Yeah,
one in 2003. That's, of course, the year you guys got married. Um,
right.
this question is a two-parter. Did you guys meet on set? And did it's just so like my wife would absolutely love to be in the position where like she was writing what I say and do. Do you guys ever just like stop and appreciate that or chuckle at that? Like what whether you're like on set or something like, no, do it this way, or does that ever carry over into the home?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, to answer the first question, we met in college. We've been together 30 years.
Nice, congratulations.
Yeah. Thanks. Uh, yeah, some of those parts she kind of would give me notes on set. Um, if if she could, if it was
Hmm.
appropriate. Usually, the director's giving you notes, or the writers give you notes too. But I think
Yeah.
she probably gave me more notes than I would normally have gotten.
Does she like pre-direct you the night before? Like, "Look, this is the scene. This is what I was thinking when I was writing it." Do you come into it with like a little bit more framework than you normally would with like a script that was written by somebody who wasn't your wife?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, she'll say like, "No, he's more serious," or he's
Yeah.
not this or that. Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's got to be a
Yeah,
cool advantage for the character. And yeah, I swear there's just something really interesting about the dynamic there because like you guys could almost have your own reality series or a show that's based on you because like you're improv at heart and she is a screenwriter, which seems like polar opposites in the same world, like to like the flip side of the same coin. Because improv is so like no script, and she's writing scripts. She's a screenwriter. There's just
well,
interesting
you know what,
dynamic there.
yeah, but we were in the improv troupe at Maryland together.
Oh, okay.
She started as an improviser.
Okay.
So yeah, she's a comedy writer. She mostly is on comedic projects. So she's a comedy writer. So, um, and she did Improv Olympic in Chicago, and I was at Second City for a little bit, and she took groundling classes, and so that's where we.
I feel like writing comedy is it's almost like you're improvising, but you're dictating or you're putting down on paper what the results of the improv was in real time. Like a lot of that, like the writing is just kind of trying things out loud, and then you know if it plays out loud, then put it down on paper. That's
Exactly.
cool.
Yeah, that's how we rated the groundlings. That's how we would get together and say, "Oh, I had this idea about these two firefighters, that are in love, or what I mean, whatever it may be." Like,
Yeah.
and then we would literally just start improvising. Like, who are these characters? And then we would just type it. We
Hmm.
would improvise and then type more, and it's exactly how we did it. You're totally right.
That's cool.
Yeah. She writes completely differently than I do. I write
Mhm.
the way you're talking about. And she's very like, let's make a beat sheet. What happens in what's the trajectory of all these, she plots it out all prior,
Yeah,
which is
that's
probably what a good writer does.
I don't know. Um, from 2015 to 2020, you provided your voice in 5 episodes of Mike Tyson Mysteries. Three
Yeah.
words I had never thought I would say this. It's just the reality we live in now is amazing. I love it. Um, I know that with voice acting, it's not like necessary for you to interact face to face or with the co-stars, but there are two people involved with that project, and I want to know if you had any interaction with them and what that was like for two very different reasons. And those are Mike Tyson and Norm Macdonald. Did you work with them directly at all?
I know. I wish I could. I wish I had. Mike Tyson. My friends created that show.
Oh, cool.
Also, Groundlings alumni that we
Nice.
used to perform together. Yeah. But Mike Tyson, I think they always flew to Vegas, to his house in Vegas, and they did all his recordings there.
Oh, okay.
That's my understanding. And then Norm Macdonald, I met very briefly. I did when my session was overlapping with his session, and we met for a second. I actually did a show with Norm Macdonald and Bob Odenkirk and my writing partner Mike Naughton, called the Not Inappropriate Show.
Oh, wow.
I used to do it every year for the holidays. It was for kids. It was a kids show at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater in LA. And but it was all sketches and comedy that was not written for kids. It was for adults, but there was no bad language, and it was stuff that they would get. So it was kind of like playing to the top of the kids' intelligence. But I did one of those shows one year with Norm Macdonald, so we got to hang out in the green room a little bit. That guy, I mean, he's
probably
he's hilarious. He's funny, one of the funniest guys ever.
Yeah. I think he's there's so many great comedians, but I could probably say that he's the one that's always that I've always identified with the most, just like his general demeanor. Has always like that in itself tickles me to my core. Just I don't like his inability to follow, not it's not even like an inability to follow rules. It seems like it was like, if there was a rule, it was like a natural attraction to break it or in some way, or
right.
And just his smart assness and God, getting up on a stage to bomb on purpose just to bask in what that feels like he's one of a kind for sure. And then I mean, just the conclusion to his story was in itself, like as heartbreaking and tragic as it was so fitting to like the trajectory of like just the way he told stories. And it's almost like he crafted this really dark punchline. It's just wild. They're gonna study him in philosophy in the future. Or psychology.
Yeah, you're right. That is an interesting thought.
In 2017, you played the title character in the feature film
Who Are You?
Tangoborn Manclenty. And this it kind of reminds me of like what you were talking about, the other film you did with Zach Braff, where you don't have many lines, but you're carrying it.
Right.
When I watched the trailer for this, and it seems kind of similar. It almost gave me like a Peter Sellers Being There type of vibes. Always felt like he was an alien just in disguise. What was that like carrying a feature film, and especially where you're doing a feature and you like, I mean, you're carrying it. What's that like?
Yeah. It's fun. I mean, it's my friend Ted Michaels wrote and directed that movie, another Groundling. He we have a understanding, we have the same language, comedy language. So I knew what he wanted, and it's sort of like when you get to work with people that you've done a lot of stage work with, or you've gone through a thing like the Groundlings together, like you build this shortcut of communication.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, it was easy. And carrying the film, I mean, I don't really think of it like that, I guess. I'm not thinking like I'm carrying this film. I just trying to I mean, maybe it sounds corny, but I'm just trying to like do my best in every scene to make it the best project it can be.
But I mean, it's gotta ask more of you than like a supporting role as far as the time that you're there, and
Right.
the like what's that like for you, like because I mean, how long did it take to shoot that?
Well, that was ultra low budget film. I think Ted shot that for $60,000.
Mhm.
I mean, and it took him a long time because he didn't have all the money at once. So it was a couple years of working on that project. Shoot a couple days, and then 6 months, and then come in and you do some ADR, and then another day late 5 months later on the beach. It was kind of that. Like, he
Wow.
kind of had to put it together based on when he had money.
Yeah.
And I think he didn't do Kickstarter. He did another online fundraising. I can't remember the name of it. So in that sense, it wasn't like Closing Escrow was like they had 14 days or whatever to shoot this film,
Mhm.
and then it was done. But this was kind of, but I liked going back and revisiting this character. It's such an oddball. I mean, he's an alien that's sent to save the earth.
Yeah.
Um, and he knows nothing. Like, they forgot to program him for knowing how to communicate or talk or interact with people. And so through the movie, he's learning about love, and he's learning about, he's learning speech and how to walk and all these crazy things.
That's I this might be a little bit off topic, but when you're like it made me think of it when you're talking about going back to a character after like stepping away for a little bit and then returning to a character. Um, but like uh, you're like things change in your life, and the way you perceive things change, and like for me, like I have good days and bad days, and who I am now is not like who I was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And like even just the good days and off days, where when do you ever like come into a set where are you are just not feeling it at all, like you like you're just completely off,
Oh, totally.
like how do you overcome that, like do you just put it compartmentalize those feelings and just be the person on the page, like how do you flip that switch in those moments?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly right. It's like,
Just
I mean, it's kind of like any job, like if,
sure.
where you go in, you're like, oh man, I don't want to go to work today.
Yeah.
And some jobs are jobs, like the commercial jobs, where I'm like, oh God, I have to go do this commercial where all I'm doing is biting into a donut.
Mhm.
Like, it's not
Gratifying.
that fun, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I'm trying to make a living, and I have a family, and there's some jobs that I have to take that I'm not super excited about.
Mhm.
But I mean, I do compartmentalize it. I mean, I have to find something that, like, what's the silver lining, or what's the thing that I enjoy about today? At least I'm connecting with somebody. I met somebody that I really like on set, or we're having a good conversation, or like, oh, I found a bit that's kind of funny for
Yeah.
this donut eating commercial, that they like and they wanted it. You know what I mean? Like, I
Mhm.
try to find something to, if I'm not in a great mood or not super pumped about the job, I try to find something that's like, what's that nugget that's going to get me
Yeah.
through it. Yeah.
That makes
I mean, I've
sense.
definitely had jobs where, like, my father had passed away, or somebody's been sick, or like something's going on at home, and yeah, you have to put it aside, and
Yeah, it's
you
like I feel like it's different for like dramatic actors, or if you're in a dramatic role, you can like if you got
right,
stuff going on, you can just channel that. But
use it.
you gotta
Right.
act silly and try to make people laugh, like, and you're torn up inside over something. That's gotta be, but it's so perfect the way you put it. Like it's a job, and like my wife is a manager at an antique shop, and
Yeah.
whether she feels like smiling at a customer today or not, she has to go and smile at a customer today, regardless of
Right.
how she feels or what's going on at home. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Like a lot of yeah, I mean, we romanticize the craft of acting and Hollywood and everything so much that we forget that it is like it's work. It's not always going to be fun, and yeah, it's putting food on the table at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And if you can do
Yeah.
something artistic and there's integrity there along the way, then those are great
Right.
too. But it's also, yeah, it's work.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, you just have to, it's like, you have to also remember all the other, yeah, all the positive stuff that.
Well, speaking of positive stuff, Klitnick, um, Glenn Klitnick, 2017 to 2018. That was your character in the Netflix series Glow. This boasted a cast and crew of almost exclusively women. What was it like working on a Netflix show, and this production had to be particularly interesting because it was just like a female cast. Personally, when I work with business partners and it's like a husband and wife team,
Right.
I love working with the wife because every like guys are sometimes so short and vague,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
I'm not like that. I'm analytical. I want to know what, when, where, how long, everything, and I identify. So like, was that what that was like working on Glow? Just uh, structure, some
Oh,
structure.
yeah. It was awesome. I mean, it was so collaborative and thoughtful and positive. And I felt like the show, because it wasn't a show about women wrestlers,
Hmm.
like it had to be a women run project, clearly. Um, but the fact that they also filled the crew with so many, female DPs and um, all the departments had women, and that's not a standard.
Yeah.
Even I can probably count on one hand how many times I've had um, sound the sound people are usually guys, but on Glow they were women, at least one
Yeah.
woman, and I mean it was just great. Like I totally loved that job. Everybody was very gracious and happy and they were telling an important story also.
Yeah. Allison
Um,
Brie, I really like I got on Allison Brie watching Community. I thought she was great in that.
yeah,
And
she's
this was
great.
like a whole other side of her because she was the goody two shoes on Community. And this was like, oh wow, Allison Brie has range. This is the exact opposite of
Yeah,
who I've been watching. And they're both equally great. She's a really great actress.
yeah, she's great.
In 2018 and 2019, you worked on something that I stumbled upon and I absolutely love. Gerry and Seymour Whitaker of Law
Yeah.
Is Following, two brothers trying to make a movie.
Hi, Seymour Whitaker, filmmaker.
Hi, Gerry Whitaker, Seymour's brother, obviously, and fellow aspiring filmmaker.
It's just such a brilliant concept. You guys are so good together. I loved like all the I spent probably 45 minutes with you, just like going through the videos and watching them again. And just like the little nuances that you guys would do. My favorite is passing the mic back and forth.
We thought it was a story that needed to be told.
Told during Jesus' time.
The same introduction every time, and the way you're just so like passive. And um what I thought was brilliant about it is that there's like I noticed like a subtle storyline that started to play out where Gerry lets your cat out, just like a moment that happens in the background, and before that we find out that you couldn't live without the cat, and then like the last video that was posted, you just seem completely checked out because the cat's well, it doesn't explicitly say because the cat's missing, but you're just clearly not interesting anymore. What's happening?
Hi, Gerry Whitaker, filmmaker. Seymour Whitaker, fellow filmmaker as well. And Seymour is just a little bit out of sorts still. Yeah, Jonathan.
What I find so awesome about it is that if somebody doesn't know you, like I watch a lot of YouTube channels that will document those real life or like the internet stories that play out on Twitter or whatever, whether they're like real world or role playing. I can't remember, or APGs or RPGs or something. Where like, these fictitious stories play out in real time as if they're real on Twitter or YouTube. And then these other people will come along and document it and put it all together. And they could have a field day with that because there's so like these dark undertones and it's like this weird rabbit hole that you could easily go down. So I say all that to say I love it. And I was just curious what the inspiration was behind making that, and just how you kind of built those characters and how it became what it was.
Oh man, I'm so happy to hear you say all this. The Whitaker brothers it started as a sketch at the Groundlings. Michael Naughton and I, Michael came over one day and he was like, "Hey, I just did this weird Q&A the other night at it was a play reading, a stage reading of a play, and he said this guy got up and asked these just ridiculous questions about how to write a play, like how do you get to make a play, like sort of common knowledge questions." And so we wrote these characters, these brothers, these reclusive brothers who've never done anything in their lives. So it started as a sketch. We did multiple versions of it through multiple shows over the years at the Groundlings. And then we wrote those videos. And Bob Odenkirk, who's a friend of ours, loved them. And he gave us some notes and thoughts about those guys. And then Mike and I just decided one day, we'd made like 15 or 16 of those videos, and we thought, like, let's just write the movie. So we've written the movie.
Oh, wow.
It's called The Making of Jesus Diabetes. It's Seymour and Gerry Whitaker trying to make, their mother has passed away from complications of diabetes. They've never lived anywhere else but in their house with their mom their whole lives. They're now 50. And they decide that they want to make diabetes aware to the world so other mothers won't pass away. So they decide to make a film, but it's set in Jesus's time because they think people go to see movies with Jesus. So, but the movie is actually it's being documented, their making of their movie by their neighbor, Jake.
It is such a brilliant concept, and the characters are so lovable because they're so innocent and naive, and they're the perfect playground. And you nailed it. And I really like didn't the brother say at one point there's been a lot of films made about diabetes, but none of them got it right. And I'm thinking like, no, I can't think of a single film that's been made. Like the comedy is so underscored. It's brilliant. I will I subscribed, and I will be following up. That's actually you answered my other question. Like I thought the ambiguous ending is a perfect way to leave the channel, but I'm just as happy to find out that you're planning on continuing those characters and going forward with that. So that's gold. It's gold, Gerry.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks. We're in the midst of trying to get it made. I mean, we've gotten close, and now we're getting closer, and so we'll see.
Well, I'll definitely share it and put a link in the description for when this posts, and maybe put like 6 or 7 more eyes on it, if one of them is a McPoyle.
I think that's it. So I am Gerry Whitaker, filmmaker, and this is Seymour Whitaker, fellow filmmaker as well. Did you want to go look a little bit again?
So It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I got into this show probably when they were almost when they were just going into the second season. I'll never forget. I was walking around Walmart. I just saw Philadelphia, and I thought, oh, this looks interesting. Like this, this was before streaming. You couldn't just try something. You had to commit. Yeah, I bought the first season DVD. I brought it home.
Oh, right.
5 minutes into the first episode, I knew that I made the right decision, and I've been hooked ever since. And you're easily, if not my favorite supporting character, definitely in the top 2 or 3. Like every scene that you're in is just, you can never prepare yourself for what is going to transpire when you see Uncle Jack enter the frame. Like you have to be prepared for anything. So I read in a Reddit AMA that you actually got that part without an audition after the guys saw you. They went to see Artemis perform, and you did a sketch that same evening. When you read the first script that they sent you, did you have any idea, like any inkling that 17 years later, 15 seasons later, all the ways your character has evolved, that any of that was going to take place from that one episode?
No. Yeah, no inkling at all.
Yeah. I don't think they did either, right? Like that they were going to go forward after season 1 until, well, at least during during the time of the production of your episode, right?
Yeah, it wasn't like, I think that's the only episode I did that season,
Mm-hmm.
season 1. Yeah, I mean, every time they would call, it was like awesome. It was super exciting. I mean, I never knew, it was never told to me like, you're going to do 4 episodes the next season, and then you're off a season, and then you're going to come back. It's always been, through the whole thing, it's always been, oh man, they called, I'm doing an episode. It was always a surprise to me. So yeah.
And it was the seventh episode of the first season is our introduction. The slower. Yeah,
Oh, right.
it's okay. This 2005 was a very different time.
Right.
You've been on the first season. To me, it felt a lot like it had like the edginess and the grunginess of an independent film, like a low budget indie film. And then listening to the guys talk about it on the podcast, like they're talk about they were figuring stuff out, and the studios weren't really that involved with it. They just kind of here's some money, do what you did in that pilot, and more of that.
Oh, really? Yeah.
What was your experience like? Because you've been on both the big studio productions and the independent films, but did it fall more along the lines of like a indie feel?
Yeah, it always has felt that way to me, even after all these years. Because I mean, clearly they've gotten more money as the years have gone on.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always felt they are so giving, all of them. They're such giving, grounded, just great. They're just great people, and they've always been kind to me and everybody I know that's worked on that show. Just it's such a wonderful sort of stressless atmosphere.
Yeah, the energy definitely plays through with the. You've had the vantage point of being there in the very beginning and as recent as like 2018. What's that like? The production quality has obviously improved, and
Right.
you could tell that the budgets are there. They have a little bit more freedom. What's that like for you as like someone that's been there in the beginning and then now? Like it's the same show but bigger toys.
Yeah, there's more people, there's more crew. You know, they
Is the energy still there? This is the same. Like, do you still feel that that in the like I guess the close knitness of it?
I do, because I mean I feel like look, I know them from the show, and I know Charlie and Rob a little bit better, just because I've done a couple other projects with them. But I feel like they're those people that didn't like, they got great success and they didn't really change. And
Yeah.
that's my take. That's just who they are. They're just like good people, and I mean, maybe they've had more, like, I mean, I'm speculating, but maybe they've had more strain and stress from the early years because their budgets got bigger, or you know, they had to do X or Y that they didn't have to do before, or whatever it may be.
Sure. Yeah.
More eyes. But I always feel it's not like I did season 1 and then season 13 and it was suddenly like, oh man, we're on, like, this is a whole new thing. This is different. This is not what it was. I mean, I feel like the show has pretty much stayed the same. It's not like some big change happened where you're like, oh, this looks different. I mean, do you feel that? Maybe you know better.
No, that's one of the things that I really love about Sunny is that the heart of it has always stayed the same, but they've always kept you guessing as far as like there's like subtle growth and there's subtle evolution. They're always true to what that first season was. They've never deviated from the structure, but there's curveballs here and there. It somehow always feels new. Like every season it's kind of like, all right, what's going to be the spin this season? Like what's going to be the new tricks that they pull out? Like I never thought in the first few seasons that this would be a series that would give me a musical or two. I could sit here. I mean, as you can see, they're like a family on my wall.
It's amazing.
The whole family. I mean, they don't really have a choice. They've got to watch them. My wife and I love it, and my daughter will be a fan. She will be a fan when she's old enough.
Okay.
In 2009, you returned in season 5, episode 3, The Great Recession. This episode was directed by Fred Savage. We all, of course, know him from The Wonder Years. What's he like as a director?
He was great. It was kind of cool. I mean, I watched Wonder Years growing up. It was cool to work on. Did I work with Fred on something else? No, I think I've auditioned for Fred on a couple other things over the years. Like he's called me in. Again, like I think the people that they hire is a reflection of, of who they are. I mean, I really liked working with Fred Savage. He had great directorial notes for me, and
he seemed like
if I could make Fred Savage laugh, I'd feel pretty good.
Yeah. I feel like it'd be jarring to see him and not hear an inner monologue playing out loud around him.
Right.
Like
he's directed a lot of episodes of Sunny, hasn't he?
Yeah, like a lot of the first few seasons. I know, and particularly it's usually the darker episodes, which I always like, oh, come on, Wonder Years, man, what are you doing? But he seemed like he fit in with the energy perfectly. Like, because I know that ultimately when they're on set and they're performing, they've said many times they're just like, we're just trying to make each other laugh. If we can make each other laugh, then it's funny. Then we know it's funny. And it seemed like he was meshed with that really well, because it just seemed like on all the behind the scenes I've seen with them, it looks like they're just having a blast together.
Yeah, totally.
Speaking of that, the scene with you and Charlie and Charlie's mom at the table, when he's trying to move back in, and just nephew and uncle stuff. Just it's normal. How do you how do you even get through lines like that without completely breaking?
I'll tell you something. For me, when I feel like I come on a set and I'm like a guest or a guest star, like I can't break, because I'm not here. I'm here to like do this part, and I don't want to screw up their timeline or their shot. I don't
But
want to.
laughter is involuntary though, and
No, I
you're
know, I
so
know.
funny.
And I have laughed a ton on that show. I have broken a ton
Okay.
on that show. Uh, I think that scene, we improvised some stuff. I mean, whenever I've been on the show, it's been like, do the script, and then we'll just do some takes around the script.
Mhm.
So we've improvised around what they've written. It's more stringent than like Curb, because they've
Yeah.
clearly written a script, but do it in your own words a couple times. Yeah, I think that was one of those takes. Do it in your own words, and
The well, I think well, no, this is probably my second favorite Uncle Jack scene is in season 6, episode 2, when Dennis gets divorced. When you're sitting at the table with Frank and working on Frank and Charlie's annulment, how excited that you become, having accomplished this like mundane, like trivial thing that lawyers probably do 100 times a month. You want to get this picture taken to commemorate the moment, but you're going to keep your hands under the table. And then when Dee runs in because she has the Ponderosa's kids, and you immediately jump to like, all right, are the kids confined in any way in like a crawl space or a backyard bunker? Have you touched them yet? And it's the beauty of like, it's so funny on the surface because it's just so ridiculous and insane. But there's this other level to it, is what makes Always Sunny such an intelligent show, is that if you listen, you're saying that like you have I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop saying you, because Uncle Jack is not a person you want to be in real life. Uncle Jack is saying explicitly or implicitly that he has at least he has come upon kidnapped children, and in those situations touching is inevitable, and all of that is implied with just, have you touched them yet? Like, I've been in this situation a few times.
right.
Touching is gonna happen. Are we at that stage yet in the kidnapping? Like, so such brilliance and just such a quick line, and all of Uncle Jack's lines are like that. And so you already mentioned like you get to riff and everything, but a lot of your lines get like reactions from the gang, like, because when you're just throwing stuff out like that, like you say you can keep yourself together, but how often are you making them break?
um
I've
uh,
seen the bloopers. I know
yeah,
it's at least a
yeah.
few times.
I always feel like if they break and I've succeeded.
Do it just that way again.
Yeah, right. Because they make me break all the time, and maybe you're not seeing that part on the bloopers, but
You
yeah, I don't know, man.
play the characters so well.
Yeah, they've written some really, they walk like a very fine line, on that show of like, they could, if they took one step over, they've gone too far on this issue,
Mhm.
and they do such a good job of sort of like implying and subtextually like what they're saying
Yeah.
comes through. And yeah, Uncle Jack definitely has never, nobody ever says what he's done or what he wants to do, but it's so, yeah. I think they pulled back on that part of him a lot. Like in the last couple episodes I've done, I feel like it's more about his hands and his insecurities, and
Yeah, I think and that's equally as good because it's doubly as absurd. And but I think the last time that they really went hard on it on the other angle was the Gun Fever 2 Still Hot in 2013 season 9. The government wants to come into our homes and tell us what is and isn't art. It's not right. And then it comes back to you holding up a photograph saying, how is this tasteless? It's art, with a big old smile on your face. So somehow so innocent and naive still. And I have to tell you that when I saw that on television for the first time, it cut to commercial after that moment. When you're holding up the picture and smiling, it cuts to a commercial. And for half of the commercial break, my mouth was just agape. And it wasn't because like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that, I'm so offended. No, it was absolutely hilarious. But I was just in a state of disbelief that this was written down and approved. An actor was brave enough to do this in front of a camera that had a red light on it. A studio like said, yeah, put that on television. And then here I am, blessed somehow with this miracle. It made it through all those processes, and I'm watching this happen on television with the whole world to see. And that is like, in essence, the spirit of Uncle Jack to me, is just like, for the sake of comedy, if it's not like ill-intentioned and it makes you laugh, then I mean, what is the problem? And it's just, that's why I appreciate Uncle Jack so much. And I don't even know what the hell the question was at the end of that. I just say it was absolutely hilarious. And let me see if I maybe wrote a question here for myself. Have there ever been times where something was too much, either from, well, I guess from your perspective, it would be from the acting side or from the studio side, where like we need to try a safer take? Like, yeah, we love that, what you did right there, but just in case, let's do just rated R instead of NC-17 on the next one.
I think there was one scene that when they go to the Super Bowl episode, I did a scene where I was seated like on these steps, in the stadium, not in the bleachers, but like in another section of the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And it was me holding, like, doing a selfie with like 4 young kids. They were probably like 10. And it was like, hey, everybody, it's Uncle Jack. I'm just hanging with my buddies. We're having a good time. We're talking about maybe after the game having a sleepover or something. And that scene never made it into that episode. And I wondered I think I remember Rob saying, like, we're not sure if the NFL is going to allow this. So I'm assuming that it was a little too far, but I don't know. Maybe the episode was too long. I don't know.
It probably, I mean, it might have been the fact that they're like, I can't think of a single time that Uncle Jack has actually been around an actual child. To the best, like, to the best of my recollection, like all the jokes are they feel safe enough because he's within 6 feet of a child. Yeah,
right. It's all sort of in the past, something that happened that we don't know about.
Yeah,
we'll never see. Yeah.
We got about 6 minutes here. I want to ask you one more question about Always Sunny, and it's my favorite episode with Uncle Jack. Season 11's McPoyle versus Ponderosa, the trial of the century. Did you see his hands? They're beautiful. I think we should settle. What was that? That episode was kind of like the Uncle Jack episode. We finally get to see him in action in the courtroom, and it was everything that I absolutely could have imagined. He was just as terrible as I thought he would be at his job, and hilarious at it. Do you have do you have a favorite Uncle Jack episode, and
Yeah, that one.
why? Okay, what made that one your favorite?
I just loved being able to see Uncle Jack in a courtroom setting and to see how inept he was, and uh the fact that he is trying to represent, like, the fact that he always is now wearing his fake hands even in a courtroom setting,
Yeah.
and he doesn't think that anybody thinks it's strange. He
Mhm.
just believes that it's a normal thing. He's just not happy with his hands, and he's now wearing them all the time in public. And he thinks people believe it. Like, oh, that guy must be that guy's, that it's not weird.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's litigating, like, I just loved that. I loved the dichotomy of his just.
I think that's what made that episode so brilliant, is because they spent 15 years or 13, 14 years at this point, however long it's been, showing us how ridiculous Uncle Jack is. And then it's
Right.
like, oh my God, we're gonna get to see this guy actually at work now. This is gonna be amazing. And you were just as ridiculous in the courtroom, but it just seemed even more absurd because of the setting that it was in. Like, usually you're with Frank, or
Yeah.
just the fact that you were in a courtroom in front of a judge who happened to be what's his name from oh damn it, I'm forgetting now. Family member, but Die Hard. I shot a kid, Al Pal. Yeah, this is so cool. And I mean, the Sean Whalen was in the was
Sean
there
Whalen.
for McPoyle.
Yeah.
Guillermo del Toro's in there for that. Yeah,
I know.
and
And I'm
then
such a fan of his. I was too nervous to talk to him. I wanted to talk to him, but
and you're honestly the standout of the episode. Like, in my humble opinion, that I call that the Uncle Jack episode. Like, if you like Uncle Jack, watch that episode. It's everything. It's so good.
What's funny too, because Charlie, like, when the hands, thank you, but also like when the hands flew across the room, Charlie, we did it once or twice, and then Charlie was like, just take it to a 10. So his direction for that moment.
Nobody look! Yeah, that's incredible.
What the fans at home would like to know, who are aspiring actors, is what does one do in an audition situation to secure the role?
I think you got to come in like super low confidence. Don't be off book. Don't know the line. Just say whatever you want. Just come in with the character choice, and then just like say what you think would happen in that scene, regardless of what the script is.
Well, there you have it. Andrew Friedman, Uncle Jack here,
Yep.
giving you the facts.
Tree life.
Don't do that.
Live in a tree, yos. Save the trees. Be a tree.
Andrew, I want to thank you so much for taking the time. This was an absolute honor to talk to you about all the things that you've done. I wish maybe we could do a part 2 and get into the stuff that we didn't get to today.
Yeah.
Before, just as a goodbye, is there anything that you have coming out that you want to let the audience know about? And just any parting words that you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, no, thanks so much for having me, man. It's been fun talking. Insightful. Anything coming out? I did a couple episodes of Mythic Quest.
Oh, nice.
Which is Rob McElhaney's show and David Hornsby's show on Apple.
Yeah.
So next season I'll be on that.
Very cool.
And I did an independent film with Ike Barinholtz.
Oh, cool.
I just a small part in a movie called Maximum Truth, which I think is coming out the end of this year, maybe beginning of next year. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, this has been, again, such a pleasure. Just thank you very much. And I hope to see Uncle Jack in the future. And yeah, let's maybe we can continue this, and I'll put links to everything so anybody that's watching this can find the short films, the YouTube series, all that stuff.
Oh, great.
In there.
Cool.
Andrew, thank you. This was absolutely awesome.
Yeah, thank you, man. This was fun.
Have a good one.
Yeah, have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Come inside and I can fight you. Come inside and I can fight. You pin me down with your strong hands. You pin me down with your strong hands. Come inside and I can fight.